All right, guys, in today's video, what we're going to be working on, we're in the rear part of an SUV, a GMT 400 old body style SUV. This is a Suburban, a 1999 1500. And what we're working on are changing out the rear sway bar stabilizer links. So if we take a look at these rear stabilizer links, unlike the ones in the front, these don't tend to rush through and break off. What tends to happen here is that the rubber bushings fail. So you can see here, this is on the driver's side. This one's all cracked. Pieces of it have come off on this piece here, so we're almost at the point of metal rubbing on metal. And up here we've got all kinds of cracks in the bushing. If we give it a pull, we'd be able to get that piece to break off. Same over there. I'll show you the similar condition of the passenger side, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to be taking off these two 15mm fasteners and swapping out this stabilizer link. All right, guys, here we are on the driver's side. Similar condition, right? The rubber and the bushing of this stabilizer link is all shriveled up and cracked. There's pieces of it broken off on this one. Up on top, you can see a nice view of how badly cracked it is. Now we can just give this a push and that'll probably fall off. Cracked on this side too, right? So this definitely has to be swapped out. Not a bad job. All right, in addition to these, and I probably should have showed this when we were on the driver's side, there's also two bushings right adjacent to the lower shock mount. Now, this is the outer rubber of those. These are fine. There's no cracks. They're still pliable. It's just how it goes, guys. You know, sometimes things wear out at different rates than others. So these we won't be changing today, but I'll go ahead and put the part numbers for this type of bushing as well as the stabilizer link that we're changing in this video. But we're going to go ahead and get started here on the passenger side since that's where we are. We're going to grab a couple of 15mm fasteners and throw a little bit of PB Blaster on these threads and work these two bolts off. All right, guys, let's take a look at the service manual procedure for this. Looking at the 99, because this is a 99 Suburban, but this is the old body style version of the service manual, not the new body style. So we go to the section on the rear suspension area. We can see the blow-up diagram. Obviously, this is the part we're replacing, the stabilizer link, which is identified as part 10. Right? So stabilizer link in part 10 consists of a bolt, a washer, and a nut. Right? The other piece I mentioned are these bushings, these insulator bushings that go underneath the axle. So there's an insulator bushing and a retaining clamp, and those are held in by just a bolt. That's parts 12 and 13 here. So you see 12 is the clamp and 13 is the insulator. So they talk about replacing these brackets, all except the 1-ton models. This cover the 1/2 ton and the 3/4 ton. And what we're interested in is the torque values, right? So if you're doing the insulator and the clamps, then that's going to be a 25 foot-pound on those bolts. And if you're doing what we're doing today, it's going to be a 33 foot-pound on the nuts on those bolts that are holding the stabilizer link itself. This other 33 foot-pound torque value is referring to the actual bracket for the stabilizer links themselves. Just real quick, just so you can orient yourself what you're looking at here, that's this piece here. Right? We're not touching that, but if you happen to remove it, that's what that other torque value is for. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get this first one off. I'm going to put a little bit of PB Blaster on the back side of these threads. When we start to work it off, that'll help us when we get started. See if we can get this guy off with just a breaker bar and a box end wrench. These are both 15mm, by the way. Depends on how much rust we got here. If it's really bad, then we might just switch to the impact wrench. All right, well, the nut turned. That's promising. Let's see if we can get any luck with the top one. Yeah, same deal. The nut turns. That's good enough. All right. Now, there's not any kind of tension on this. There's our washer. There's our nut. There's our bolt rusted in here. And won't be able to get a punch on this side to get it out. So what we're going to want to have to do is get some lubricating fluid in there. Almost. There we go. So what we want to look at on the bolt is we just want to make sure that there's no corrosion cutting into the bolt. If it was, we'd have to replace it. And along with the other pieces, I'll put the part number down for that below because I know in some cases it can be a problem. All right, so now we've got the top out. Let's get the bottom out. Same thing. There's our nut. This guy's really kind of corroded on here, the actual bar. All right, guys, so the washer's kind of cemented itself onto the bushing, so we're going to have to try and tap this off. Never seen anything like that. And we need to try and get the bolt out too. Give ourselves a little bit better leverage to put this guy back in. See what's happening here, guys, is the inside of the bushing, the metal sleeve, has corroded itself onto the bolt. Still not where you can do it by hand. Yeah, all right, so this is a time for the impact wrench. Now there's our washer. Free of the corrosion now. Now we just got to get this bolt to let go of this bushing. Insert. Well, she is on there. We're going to see if we can split this. I don't know if we'll be able to because we don't have any kind of backing to it in this shape. See if I can get this to turn around a little bit. Yes, normally not this big of a deal, guys, but this is completely corroded onto this bolt. We're going to try and save the bolt by see if we can get this seam to let loose. We can open this up, and then we'll be able to separate it. Otherwise, we're going to have to cut the whole thing off and get a new bolt. Guys, we're going to give this a shot. What we're doing, guys, is we're using this nut cracker to open up this gap. And for some reason, our lubricant is just not coming out today. All right. So that's one use for this kind of a tool. And fortunately, our bolt does not look damaged enough to replace. I think we'll just wire wheel them and we can put them back in service. All right, guys, let's take a look at these bolts. So here's the bolt we took out of the top. If we zoom in here, we can see there's a little bit of a small neck to this bolt. As the shank comes down and it necks down slightly where that bushing insert sits, and then you have the threads. And here's the lower bolt. And we see I have significant pitting on this bolt after we wire wheeled it. And compare the two, we've got more than the neck down. We actually have some reduction in the diameter of the bolt. So this bolt's trash. We're going to have to replace it. So we're going to go ahead and do the driver's side before we go pick up parts. The top one's okay. This one's got to be replaced. I'll share the part number with you when I pick it up. But let's go ahead and get the top part of the replacement put in. So we're going to be replacing this with a GM1596 1007 stabilizer link. All right, looks just like what we took out. And the OEM on these is Clevite. If you zoom in there, you can see that that's stamped into the rubber bushing. There's no particular orientation on these, by the way. So for now, I'm just going to put our previous nut and washer back on. And I'm not going to torque it because we're going to have to replace this other bolt. But when I do, this is the one that's going to get the 33 foot-pounds. But this is another reason why you want to replace these guys. It's not just that the bushings themselves on the rubber gives out, but that these inserts, like we saw here, can corrode and stick to the fastener, and then we end up having to trash the fastener as well. All right, so we see there's the typical kind of cracking all along the outer rubber, right? And on this one, it had not only cracked, but it had shriveled up so that we can push it through the housing. So this is all long past its service life and needs to be replaced. All right, let's see what we got on the driver's side. All right, we're just going to get the corrosion debris out of the bore of the stabilizer bar where that rusty bolt was sitting. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get this part going. Now let's see what kind of fun we have on this one. Now, if you wonder what kind of tool it was I used over there, I figured I'd show you that. It's an old Craftsman nutcracker. So, because of the type of tool it is, it's good for splitting those bushing inserts too. We'll go for the top one again because, at least if it's the same as the passenger side, it's going to be less corroded. Got less room over here because we've got these emergency brake cables in the way. Alright, so we'll take the nut off first since it's the one that's the most cooperative. Actually, given the cramped quarters here, let me switch to a different tool. Just cutting through the rust on the threads here. I think she's loose enough we can switch off the breaker bar. You can see right here, guys, you can see all the rust peeling off the threads. It's part of what we're fighting. And this is not even a car that is in a salt belt state, but eventually rust gets them all to a certain degree. All right, so let's see what we got going on with the bolt itself. So it looks like our washer is not welded on with corrosion like the other one was. It's a good sign. Yeah, our bolt's turning freely, so we're lucked out there. Let's see what's going on with this guy on the bottom, which is where we had the problem on the passenger side. Well, it turned. Maybe it's just 1 out of 4. Yeah, this one feels fine. All right, so this one we'll be able to get all mounted with the original fastener hardware. Yay. Okay. This one's coming off textbook style. A little bit stuck here at the very end. Let's see if we can give it a little bit of help. I guess we're going to have to literally unthread it out just because there is some corrosion even on this one. This is a job where penetrating fluid actually does work. All right. So, is our bolt okay? Yeah, just surface corrosion on this one. All right, so let's take our other link. Same part number that we did before, just a little bit of a different packaging. 1596 1007. And again, that's an OEM from Clevite. There's a couple of OEMs that supply GM on these parts. I'll put those links in the description. The GM part is discontinued. It's a little bit harder to come by. Delphi is a good, obviously the OEM to GM, so that's obviously a good one. And then I would also go with the Delphi Part 2, which is, former GM divisions that made these parts when they did make them. Just having it not block your guys' view makes this super, super cramped to do. Of course, I just blocked your view there, but guys, nothing. Just put a nut on right here. You're not missing anything. All right. Let's get a couple of ratchets here. Tighten this down. We'll fast forward through this part, and then we'll torque it down to 33, and then I'll show you what the part number we ended up using to replace that nut, or excuse me, that bolt on the other side is. All right, let's pop our socket on our torque wrench, hit it to 33, and then I'll tell you a little bit about these guys down here. Probably could have went a little bit tighter with the regular ratchet on this one. All right, there's 33 on that one. There's 33 on that one. All right, so we didn't have to replace these bushings down here, right? So you've got a rubber bushing like we saw in the service manual, and then you got this clamp. It's held on by a bolt here, and then one on the other side to this welded-on bracket to the axle. I'll put the part number for this bushing in the description, but if you ended up having to replace this, like you saw in the service manual, you're just going to remove these bolts. This little metal clamp's going to come off. There's less drama than with this, right, because you don't have a bolt inside of a bushing piece. And this rubber piece, this insulator, just comes off. It's split. If you zoom in here, it's like a cut in it on both sides so that you can get it onto the bar. In our case, there's not a single crack or anything. It's still soft, right? So if you don't need to replace it, you don't need to replace it. Sometimes things wear at different rates. These guys needed to go. those guys didn't. All right, so let me go take you back over, and I'll show you the part number for that bolt, and I'll wrap it up. All right, guys, we ran up and got our replacement bolt. It's a part 1151-6109. You can see it's exactly the same bolt, but now we don't have this deep pitting that we had on the original. So we're good to go on the replacement. We can put our washer and nut back on here, and now we can drive this guy to 33 foot-pounds of torque as well. We'll snug him up with the ratchet first. We'll just fast forward through this for you guys. And then we'll go ahead and do the same 33 foot-pounds of torque that we did on the other side. So this is going to complete this particular job now. I hope this helps you guys out in doing the same job on your GM SUV old body style truck. If you got questions, go ahead and leave them below. I'll try to help. If you found this video useful, save you some time and money in getting this job done for yourself, take a moment to hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it. And as always, thanks for watching.